Okay, so yeah, welcome to the third episode of the Digital Fashion Innovator Series here on Instagram Live. My name is Marie Bastian, and I'm the CEO and founder of World of Mesh, and I'm your host for today's session. And yeah, this new era of digital fashion is just bringing together so many talents from all around the globe. Darja, you're one of them. And we just wanted to create this platform, yeah, to celebrate you, hear a little bit about your journey, and to hear stories, and to inspire a whole generation of digital creators out there that are also joining in this industry right now, and probably can't get waited to add their amazing skills. So yeah, all of our guests are speaking on behalf of themselves. So yeah, if you also, for all listeners out there, if you have any questions, also feel free to add them in the comments as usual, and we would be more than happy to get back to them at the end of the session. And yeah, I think with that we can kick it off, Darja. I think we got everything.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Marie. I'm really excited to be here. It's really amazing what you're doing, and it's a privilege to be on the series with you.
Yes.
So, hi everyone who joined. Just about myself, then. I'm currently holding the position of digital developer manager at the North Face. Previously, I've been working in a similar position for Adidas.
Yes.
So, a little bit about my background. I have a very traditional garment technologist background. So I studied in Tallinn University of Applied Sciences, and I studied technical design of apparel. So it was pretty much a mass creation, doing patterns, development, so everything that is garment end-to-end. We did not do anything digital, so that was a little bit earlier times when I was studying. My first professional experience was in Adidas as a pattern intern, and from there I joined the fashion business unit where I was doing collabs, and I started working as a developer. So basically I shifted from pattern maker to developer, which was amazing to see both, because it's a good skill to have, especially at the moment. It's really useful. So I was working with collabs like Yeezy, Fiorucci, Alexander Wang, a lot of like high-level complex collabs. And if you have corporate background, of course, you know that there's a lot of opportunity in big corporations, but for creation processes, it might be a little bit rigid as well. So, for example, if we want to try out sample for collabs, we needed to have like 5 different samples and 5 different colors for the same style. So just changing and tweaking and then showing it all to our partners. It takes 5 weeks to create a sample, and I would need to support from a big team, pattern makers, materials, some other developers, and then we need to send it to factory, and 5 weeks later we would get the results. So of course 5 weeks in a big corporation,
A long time,
a lot happens. So your KPIs change, you get your quarterly, you realize that the focus shifts, or it's not as important anymore, the styles get dropped. You get a new CEO, so
that happens.
yeah, sitting in a big room full of samples and only selling a little tiny bit of it, and everything else goes to the bin, or you make a kilt blanket out of it. So it just made me question things, and everything that happens before sales, everything in development is kind of a waste, so you don't get paid for it.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a question of how do I reduce the time of really the creation, and how do I get the right first time and really quickly to my results that I want to achieve. So that's why I started interested in digital kind of. And luckily, at the same time, we had a project coming up with the BU Core where they started doing digital creation. So I joined the journey from there and started working with digital on a daily basis.
Yeah, but that's it's just great to see that whole length of like the experience that you dabbed into, because like you said at the beginning, and that you came from pattern, you went into development, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities and how this is all changing also during digital creation. But the main point that you just mentioned, which I think a lot of us can tap into, which I just wanted to highlight, is that when you work in the fashion industry, so in the process before you go into sell in, you really realize like the sample productions and how much time, but also resources and waste go into it. And that's like a huge motivator for me and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And you mentioned that, and I just wanted to highlight that because I think a lot of people can identify. Because going into the industry, when you're studying fashion or whatever other job on the development chain you're working in, you don't really understand it until you really get into the job. So thanks so much for highlighting that.
Yeah, I mean, I also spoke to the factory recently, and they told me that most of the space taken up in the in their factory is the sample rolls of materials, which is funny because you need to dye up more than it actually is needed for a sample.
Absolutely. And you want to hear a fun fact? I heard that if you take all the fabrics that are left on stock together in the world, we could be producing stuff another 2 years further the way we are right now. So that's how much stock
that's nuts.
Just sitting there. And I know there's a lot of amazing brands out there taking this in consideration and using leftover stock. And I know there's more mindfulness coming into the process now, but when I heard that, that really gives you an idea, like operating 2 years globally with what we have already, that's how much we've produced. So going digitally, will minimize the need for those sample production waste, which is great. I love highlighting that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
So we just touched base a little bit on the roles and responsibilities and how they're changing while we add this extra layer of digital product development on top of our traditional process actually. Would you like to speak a little bit to that and tell us a little bit of how you see maybe the roles changing, if you like development specific, but also a wider view on that?
For me, like when I started digital, that was the biggest issue. So you can be a kick-ass garment technologist, but once you add the complexity of digital on top, you're really lost. So for me, it was really understanding how 3D works, because when we talk digital, we're talking about 3D, Clo, V-Stitcher, all this stuff.
Yes.
And there is a lot more layers in the program than it is in, let's say, a CAD file. So that was something to really look into. And there is a lot of parallel things, like digital material, trims, digital trims. So you had to really understand differences and similarities and how to bridge this gap. So I knew very little, so I had to start and teach myself and, go into the program and really understand how the digital and physical work together. And I mean, I get every time I speak about digital, there is a golden question of every company asks it, how quickly can we train our team? And honestly, I don't think that the training ever ends with digital. There is so many updates, it's ever evolving, it's so fresh. And also there is so many layers and so much you can improve and get to the same solution with different angles and different techniques. So I think for me the skill set was completely changing, but also the roles and responsibilities are blurring a little bit. So let's say if you do digital end-to-end, it depends how you want to do your digital process, right? You can also just do SMS twin. But if you want to really do digital end-to-end, you need to start with design. Yeah. And for design, they used to be they're not garment technologists, they're designers, they have a vision. They bring something to life to show you, and you put it into a box. I love to say that developers are very boring. They just want to put everything in the box. So for them, we need to walk them through the journey now. So the role of designer is changing. Then our role, of course, we need to really bridge it end to end for the developers to understand what my vendor wants to have and, look at this part of the journey.
And just to jump in there shortly, in case anyone out there is wondering what end-to-end means, I'd just explain for all the newcomers. No, that's my job. I'll take care of it. End-to-end means if you're using digital from the very starting point, so pattern construction and, the first design steps, up to actual production files. So having, in best case, production-ready 3D garments ready that have one source of truth that you can actually depend on. Just explain that, but go on.
No, definitely. And also, because design can use the 3D file in different ways. They can use it for inspiration, but if we really want to use it until the end, they need to really apply techniques that are workable and understandable for the vendors and for the end sales. So we also have different functions talking to each other. So when I started my journey, I was really surprised how much I need to work with IT. We were working with the IT team to really create automations and build the efficiencies. And it was really funny because I was trying to explain how my t-shirt works and what a cover stitch is. And at the same time, they were trying to explain to me what a code is and what they need to do. And we were trying to meet each other in the middle, and it was training each other. And at the end of the day, when pandemic hit, I had to learn how to write code. I was literally doing some trainings just to understand what are they talking about. So it was hilarious, but also useful.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of this. I mean, a lot of companies work in an agile environment, so that means they don't have the typical project management where they have set milestones. It's also called waterfall approach. It gives you the flexibility to react, and especially I love the values that come with this working method, because sharing and explaining knowledge is a very core value of this new way of working. And that's actually what you're describing, that even though, you know, your IT support guys that are working on implementing or developing new plugins or whatever automations that are needed for the project, they're also learning a lot about garment construction and vice versa. And that's something that usually gets lost in traditional processes, because everybody has their fixed job and does their stuff, and you don't really see what other people are doing. And I think that's a very valuable part of this whole transformation that's happening right now. It's an opportunity for everyone to learn what's happening around them, actually.
100%. And I find that people these days are more tech savvy, of course, as well. Kids are learning coding at school already. So it's different. It's a different time.
Absolutely. So yeah, with that said, with how the roles and responsibilities are evolving, of course, for a team to function really well, it's really important that leadership has a clear vision and purpose of where their brand's heading and what they're actually getting into. Because right now, brands are jumping onto 3D fashion from a lot of different angles. So we have some that have more marketing, that just want to show their files digitally. Others are joining into the metaverse. Then we have some companies doing digital-only fashion. So there's a lot of different points of entry into this new era. And I think we had a conversation before where we were talking about the importance of having that direction, actually, where we're heading for these teams that function good. Can you tell us a little bit about that background and how you see that?
Yeah, so the vision is what drives the business, right? It's not only digital, it's also in any business setting, you need to have a plan. So, but also the companies are not, they cannot be in silos, or they cannot be standalone. They need to really work with partners. They need to work with different suppliers. They need to work with different companies. So in order to be able to plan the benefit, the budget, the time frame, they really need to have a vision. And also, if you have a lot of teams involved, this vision is going to translate into something different. So let's say maybe for planning it's something else than it is for finance, and everyone needs to have a KPI against the vision, right? So there is a huge array of things that you can plan as that you can think of as digital. It could be machine learning, 3D assets. It could be databases, automations.
A wide range.
Yeah, so people say digital, but they don't really specify what they mean by that. And I feel like companies hear digital and they just want to have it.
Yes.
So I think you need to plan your digital journey really, from creation to sell-in, and also what do you do after that with all these assets, not to create digital waste, because that's also a waste.
Absolutely.
It's the money that you're wasting. So you need to really plan, what do you want to have out of it. So also, like a funny story, I was hanging out with my little niece one day, and she has a Nintendo Switch, and she was like playing around with it, and she was playing Minecraft. I don't know how old this game is, but then I was looking at it and I was so surprised. I was like, why are you playing this? There's so many good realistic games. And she was as surprised as I was, and she was like, why would I want to play a realistic game? That's how I like it. And I was really embarrassed, because this is really what it is. Digital is a different thing for everyone. And it could be NFT, it could be digital twin, it could be digital proto. So if you don't have a vision, you're going to get really quickly lost in all of this array of things.
Yeah, especially the teams get lost, right? Because
you
have a certain goal in place. There's depending on what your goal is, if it's real life or unreal life environments or mixed realities, you'll have completely different technology involved, different skill sets needed. And the teams really need this vision to get to that point. I really want to highlight this in our conversation, also to hear from you why the importance is there. So that message really gets across to our audience. But I just wanted to highlight a little bit what you said again. I love the phrase that you used. We create, we sell, and then what? So that's the big question that everyone has to answer. Like, what's the purpose? What are we going to do with these digital assets? And I know there's a lot happening right now, and people are jumping onto new strategies, and it's really good to see that happening right now. So thanks for your feedback on that.
No, I do think that this is a big one to crack, but to be honest, we are so much in the beginning of the journey of how to create it. So it's totally understandable, but it's a great opportunity for the brands.
And it's so exciting and so much fun for everyone involved. I mean, everyday work can be tough if a lot is happening at the same time. But it's such an epic time to be in this industry. I think we're gonna, maybe when we're 60, I don't know, Darja, we're gonna look back and be like, hey, we were there. It's like when the internet started.
I already feel like this, to be honest. I already feel like this when I see all the brands doing digital. I'm like, I can't believe how wonky it was in the beginning.
Absolutely. Okay, so one more point I wanted to highlight, because you touched base on also how the vendors and other partners are involved in the process as well. And you, coming from also development and background, are very much in touch with vendors. And I just wanted to hear from you how you see the current stage in the vendor side of the business, because we hear a lot from designers, developers. But how do you think do the vendors really experience this transformation? How are they seeing things, and what challenge do you think they're facing, where we can maybe support them and help a little bit?
So from the vendor side, because this is something that I was thinking a lot about, because previously we always were like a problem for the vendors, because we really wanted to do digital and we want you to train your team and really plan the budget and so on, but we don't really give them any clear benefit from it. Now what I see a lot from the vendor side, they're really using digital for also trying out patterns, for creating before they send out a sample, they created a 3D asset for themselves even. They think about how to use 3D for SMVs, the standard minute value calculations. So how long does it take to sew the garment? They also, the main benefit, of course, is to freeing up their sample rooms, because salesman samples is in thousands. It's just samples for selling the product. So this is a big challenge for the suppliers, and we're not there yet, because in order to have 100% digital salesman samples, we need to have accounts that are really buying the the samples digitally. So it's a little bit chicken and the egg story. In between, we need to make sure that we really enable the digital sell-in for all the brands or the accounts to buy from digital. So these are the few points for the vendors. Also, another point would be really freeing up the proto sample rounds. Also, like I said, they have a lot of material storage and so on, so it's also quicker.
Absolutely. I mean, the amounts of salesman samples are immense. I mean, for everyone who's not so involved, you get one collection at the end after you went through probably per garment 6 or 15 iterations until you get a salesman sample collection, and that will be duplicated for the number of showrooms. For example, a company in Germany might have 12 showrooms, and that's 12 times those 12, that collection. And those are, garments that are just there to be sold in, and it's massive. And just shipping everything, the time you can save, the money you can save for the samples is really immense. And it's great to hear that the vendors are also dipping into that as well and getting their
they're really pushing for it. So I was really surprised the last time I spoke with them that they're really interested. It used to be us being interested in them working with digital, but now they're really keen on it.
That's amazing to hear. So maybe one last question for the end before we jump over to any questions that might be asked. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to chip them in now before we get to the end. What is for you the most underestimated part when it comes to digital product creation and that brands and teams experience during the transformation? What's the most underestimated part that you notice?
I mean, for me, like it's kind of underestimated how what does digital involve. So what you really need to do to actually achieve digital creation. So and also, I think they really underestimate how much benefit they can have from doing digital on a kind of a horizontal scale in terms of doing it overarchingly for all the companies. So let's say the big brands would work together on the same asset quality, on the same channels, the same tools. So this would be a really big benefit for the brands. And I think that this is a really problematic at the moment, that all the brands are working in silos, and they're trying they're trying to basically win in digital, be the best in digital. But at the end of the day, as we said, there is a supplier on one end and the sales at the other end. So people interacting with the assets that we create are the same. So definitely companies like World of Mesh would be super crucial for the industry, because you guys really see what everyone is doing, and you can kind of set some standards and alignments between the companies. So it's really, everyone can benefit from that.
Oh, thanks so much for that feedback. But yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of companies were just getting 3D into the company itself is already a huge, massive project. But I think the next step of the evolution will be, okay, the first brands that are all set and everything's working are probably going to have to look outside, and they probably already are, but at some point we're going to have to look at what are these digital asset standards cross companies. Like you said, it's the same vendors a lot working with, and it's the same clients that are on the other side too. And how do we create standards for these assets so the client doesn't see 12 different qualities coming while he's shopping his stocks together. Yeah. So it is, maybe this is a call out to anyone watching and out there. Maybe have like a round table of vendors or a round table of clients where we can just get together and maybe inspire people to start working on these standards and what the clients actually want and which quality works best for everyone.
No, I agree, and I think it's just a question of time, to be honest, because that's what we see is happening also in the traditional method. All the brands are more or less aligned. So I don't know if it makes sense to figure it out alone. It does make sense to do it as a group.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all in this together for sure. And at some point, I already see a lot of great collaborations happening across companies, because fashion industry used to be so focused and working on their projects, and I see it changing big time right now. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to get there as well. Awesome. So let's just have a look. If that's fine with you, we can jump over to some questions and answer sessions to see if any are here. Wow, you guys, look at you. So many people joining. Okay, so it looks like, oh, we just got one question. Okay, so Sergio, what benefits do you see in money-related topics such as costing, as it could affect all agents in the value chain? That's a very good question. So do you want to answer that, Darja, or should? So to talk about the benefits that we see in money-related topics such as costing, how it can affect the value chain.
So I think we do need to look at the automation, and also if we talk about money, like the budgets, we need to look at what companies are we partnering up with. So because once you commit to a partner, let's say, then you need to also have all the other systems and softwares connected down the line. And you either can take ownership of it, or like you can outsource it, or get another company to work with.
Absolutely. Perfect. And then we have another question from Daniel. Hi. So would it be possible to create circular manufacturer pattern samples? To think about what you mean with that. Create circular manufacturing pattern samples.
I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, I would think that it's to recycle the sample and create a new one.
So maybe to reuse the patterns again, maybe the 3D patterns for manufacturers now when they're doing the samples. I think is that what you mean, Danielle? Maybe we can just see if that's it. But yeah, you can go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you there.
So for recycling, the problem with the recycling usually is, if we talk about physical recycling, is that you need to regrind the whole thing. So at the moment there is, like in the physical world, there is a recyclable materials that we use. You can recycle the scraps that you use on the production lines. But for the samples, it's probably a little bit more complex because you need to return them, and then you just need to take it apart and so on. So usually the recycling, if you talk about circular, it needs to be a similar content. So that way we can recycle.
Okay, so we're talking about the physical garments at this point.
Physical garment, yeah. Digital ones we can do with the databases. So if you have a good base, then you can really implement that.
Yeah, and I think that's also such a great benefit if you have those base patterns in place and those base styles. You can always recreate from that point. You don't have to start from scratch like you do in the physical world. So yeah, another benefit of 3D. So yeah, this was amazing. I think we got through really well. A lot of great points we dived into. Thank you so much for joining our session, Darja. It was very, very insightful, especially to see it through the lens of pattern development and also the vendors through your eye. That was very, very valuable. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Marie, for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm a real fan of what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, that's so good to hear. I hope this is really bringing value also to you guys out there. Yeah, if you have any feedback, I'm always glad to hear it, or any topics you would love to dive into. Yeah, I just want to say at the end, I had a conversation with Darja a few days ago, and you actually mentioned, like, Marie, what's with you? Why aren't you being interviewed? We didn't hear any background about you.
Come on.
So I know December's a busy month. I was going to skip it, but so next session, December, we're going to have a session where I'm going to tell a bit my journey and my founder story. And I want to invite you guys all to come with questions, and I'll have a Ask Me Anything question session afterwards. So yeah, I'd love to see you guys. Feel free to join and take advantage of asking me anything that's on your mind, anything you want to know from me, and I'm happy to share a little bit about myself as well.
I'm going to definitely tune in.
Awesome.
Very exciting.
Very cool. Okay, so yeah, guys, have a great evening or morning, wherever you're calling in from. Darja, thanks so much for joining. Really appreciate having you on. And yeah, we'll hope to have you on again at some point, because I know you have a lot of other super interesting topics that we need to definitely talk about as well and share with the rest of you guys.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Bye, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye.